Hi guys, today we're going to jump in and do an inspection on the top bar hive and try and fix up a couple of the mistakes that I've made over the last few months. So it's been about 4 months since we did our last inspection on these guys, about 5 months in total since we put the bees in. For the first few months we had them, we had to keep feeding sugar water because we'd had no rain here for almost 18 months really, so there was nothing in flower, none of the local trees or anything were flowering, so there was no nectar for the bees to collect. And without nectar they can't grow. Normally in times like that the bees rely on their own honey stores, but because our colony is so new they had no honey stores to rely on, so we had to feed them. We did get some decent rain, and a lot of the local trees, which are eucalypts and wattles and things like that, have all gone into flower. So the last month and a half they've been able to forage for themselves, and they have expanded a fair bit, so we're going to go in and have a look at what they've done. I also made a couple of mistakes with how I managed the bees in that time. I thought I could fix some issues early, but I think I've created more problems than I've solved. We'll also have a look at that once we get in here. We'll go and throw a veil on and we'll open it up and we'll have a look. So last time we did an inspection, all we really had left was one original comb that was from the Langstroth nuke, and there was two that they'd built on themselves. I know now that there's at least 7 combs that they've started building themselves, plus that one original one is still there. There may be another one. So one of the things that I know I did wrong, in a top bar hive, the idea is to get the bees to build their comb along these guides. The combs are built with a V, and we try and get the combs nice and straight along there. The bees don't naturally build straight combs. They tend to get a curve, a little bit of a curve in the comb, and each subsequent comb will be a little bit more curved than the one before it. So if we allow that curve to get too bad, it will go across multiple bars, which then makes it hard to get into the hive. So that's not what we want. I had a brainwave. I had a comb that was just starting to curve on the bars, and I thought I was smarter than everyone else. Fixed that. I just turned the bar around, and I figured the bees would start building the curve back the other way, and which would tend to straighten itself out on the bars. Well, I can tell you that doesn't work. And I'll show you why when we get in here. Let's see what the girls are like this morning. That's a comb that they're just packing with nectar. There's a little bit of pollen on it. Mainly nectar, and all that capped stuff you can see there is, well, it's basically honey now, once they cap it. I think they'll still might lay some eggs on this one because they've got pollen down the bottom. Don't know if we'll really be able to see it or not. But there are some cells down there with some orange stuff in them. That's pollen. And then up the top, this is all capped honey. And in some of the others you may be able to see the liquid in there, which is nectar. They could be a bit grumpy today because there is a bit of a breeze around. But we're also to the point where some of these combs really need some work. So we're doing damage to them as we're pulling them apart, which, as you can imagine, doesn't make them very happy. Now this is what happens when you think you're smarter than everybody else and you turn the combs back to front. What you'll see, instead of having one comb along the top bar, we have 2. So that's what happens when you don't manage your comb correctly. This one's okay because it's still all on one bar, but it can, and I think some of the earlier ones down towards the start of the hive are actually across multiple bars, which then makes it very difficult to get into the hive. And if your bars aren't removable to be inspected, it is actually illegal, in this country at least. I know some people don't agree with the water spray being used to keep them calm, and I do understand the reasoning behind it, but there's still a lot of beekeepers that use it quite successfully, so I'm happy to continue with it at the moment. I may look into a smoker at some point down the track and see if I prefer it to keep them calm. At the moment this is working for me, so we'll continue. Try and get you can see very difficult to see, but there's a protrusion there on the side of the comb there, like a little bulb on the side, and if I can roll it over, you'll see that it's open underneath. That's what they call a queen cup. That's what they will actually raise queens in, those oversized cells. It doesn't necessarily mean anything's going on with the hive. Sometimes it can mean that your queen's gone and they're trying to recruit a new queen or trying to raise a new queen. Sometimes it can be that they're going to swarm, so they need another queen for the hive, but often they just do practice runs, basically just building the queen cups, and it doesn't actually mean that there is anything in particular wrong with your hive. Most of these combs are straight enough, they're fairly straight. There's that one problem one, and I think there might be another one up in here that's gone a bit haywire. As you can see, this one here is a bit of a mess. They've got multiple combs on one bar. It's hanging out the side, which means it'll attach to the comb next door. It's really just a mess. And what we're going to have to try and do is we're just going to have to cut some of the comb off that's outside of where we want it. Go on, get grumpy. It's for your own good. May even just cut that whole piece off. There you go. That was one heading up the leg of the shorts. I'm not real keen on that. Yeah, that's probably the worst of that one. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and fit them back together as best I can. I know I've got a couple of bars that are nice and straight, so I'm going to put one of them right at the end, so that anything new built from then on should follow that, and hopefully I can do a better job with keeping them straight. That's my plan anyhow. Apart from doing major damage to the comb, which I don't really want to do at this time of year, because we are not too far off cooling down, coming into winter. I'm in here every week or two anyway. Keep an eye on their new combs, and I think I need to do a better job of, as soon as they start to curve a bit too much, just bring them back in line and do that comb by comb and keep them building straight rather than letting them get to this stage. And I don't know that I'm overly happy with how that's looking either. I mean, the bees don't care. The bees don't care if their combs overlap multiple bars. It just makes it very hard to get in and do inspections. And like I said, it's a legal requirement in Australia and in other countries as well that you can get in and inspect the combs for disease, things like that. There's only one or two problem combs in there. Maybe once the colony gets a bit bigger, I can just remove them totally. Yeah, we'll see how they progress. I'm interested to see how they go over the winter period, actually. A lot of places they do go dormant, and they do have to survive on their own stores for the entire winter, but we don't get super cold here, and I know we do have some flowering plants here that will supply them with nectar over the winter period. So yeah, I'm keen to see how our guys go. So that's about it for our top bar hive inspection today. It's good to see the girls doing so well after struggling for a while, making the most of their newfound resources. Obviously I've got a lot of work to do to try and keep those combs nice and straight, but hopefully we're on the right track now. We'll have a look back in a couple of weeks, and yeah, we'll see if what I've done's worked or made things worse again. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.